Parichena vijananti maya metta yamamase ye cha tatta vijananti tato sammanti medhaga. Dhamma friends, today I'm back with another Dhamma story, and this story is one of my favorite story from Dhammapada. So the story is about two groups of monks who quarrel each other, and then even Buddha failed to admonish them, and then he left them. So this is the sixth verse from the Dhammapada. And the Pali it says that Parichena vijananti maya metta yamamase yeche tatta vijananti tatu sammanti medhaga. Shortly it says, some not know that life ends in death. Thought of death prevents quarrels. Or full meaning of this Pali stanza is, still others do not understand that we must perish in this world. Those who understand this, their quarrels are allayed. So recollections of death brings peace. So let's read this story. The story of Kosambi monks, verse 6. While residing at the Jetavana monastery in Savatthi, the Buddha uttered this verse with reference to the monks of Kosambi. The monks of Kosambi had formed into two groups. One group followed the master of Vinaya and the other followed the teacher of the Dhamma. Once they were quarreling among themselves over a minor Vinaya rule. Even though Buddha could not stop them from quarreling, so he left them and spent the Vassa religious retreat in the monsoon season, all alone in the Rakkhita grove near Parilayaka forest. There, the elephant Parilaya waited upon the Buddha. The lay disciples of Kosambi, on learning the reasons for the departure of the Buddha, refused to make offerings to the remaining monks. This made them realize their mistake, and reconciliations took place among themselves. Still, the lay disciples would not treat them as respectfully as before, until they owned up their fault to the Buddha. But the Buddha was away, and it was in the middle of the Vassa. So the monks of Kosambi spent the Vassa in misery and hardship. At the end of the Vassa, the Venerable Ananda and many monks approached the Buddha and gave the message from Anathapindika and other lay disciples, imploring him to return. In due course, the Buddha returned to the Jetavana monastery in Savatthi. The monks followed him there, fell down at his feet, and admitted their fault. The Buddha rebuked them for disobeying him. He told them to remember that they must all die someday, and therefore they must stop their quarrels and must not act as if they would never die. So there is an explanatory translation. Let's read it too. Most of us are not willing to face the reality of impermanence and death. It is because we forget this fact that our lives are transitory, that we quarrel with each other as if we are going to live forever. But if you face the fact of death, our quarrels will come to an end. We will then realize the folly of fighting. We ourselves are doomed to die. Excited by emotions, our thoughts being clouded, we cannot see the truth about life. When we see the truth, however, our thoughts become free of emotions. And there's a little commentary about this story. Let's read it too, so we will be more clear about the moral of this story or insight of this story. Commentary. The essence of Buddhism is facing the reality of death and impermanence. Why we suffer is because we run away from reality, carried away by emotions. Emotions are in conflict with reality. Therefore, they are bound to be thwarted by reality. Not only anger, but all self-centered emotions come to an end when we face the reality of death. It is a realistic thought that ends all unhappiness. Those who do not face the reality in this Buddhist way continue to be frustrated and angry and suffer in consequence. Generally, people are not aware that death will overtake them one day. They act unmindful of this universal truth. Both monks and laymen are mindful of death and considering themselves as immortals, and often heedless in cultivating virtues. They engage themselves in strife and arguments and are often dejected, with their hopes and aspirations shattered. At times they postpone their work with the hope of doing it on a grand scale in the future, and end up without being able to do anything. Therefore, it is only proper that one should daily reflect on death. Being mindful on death is central to the Buddhist way of understanding the real nature of life. There are people in this world, people in various walks of life, who resent their very worth, death, let alone reflect on it. Infatuated by long life, good health, youth, and prosperity, they completely forget the fact that they are subject to death. Immersed in the evanescent pleasures of the fivefold senses, they seek only material satisfaction in this world, completely disregarding a future life, and indulging in vice through the mind, body, and speech. They regard this impermanent and evanescent life as permanent and everlasting. It is to arouse a sense of dissatisfaction in such blind and ignorant people, to allay the pangs of sorrow caused by separations of parents and children, and from wealth and property, to inculcate the doctrine of impermanence in all beings, thereby convince them of the unsatisfactions of life, direct them towards the attainment of everlasting peace, that the Buddha preached these words. A person who has not comprehended the doctrine of the Buddha is infatuated by long life and considers himself as immortal. Even though he may see many deaths around him, he is infatuated by good health and considers himself free from disease, even though he may see countless diseased persons around him. He is infatuated by youth, even though he may see many aged persons, and considers himself as one who is not subjected to old age. He is infatuated by wealth and prosperity, even though he may see countless persons rendered destitute through loss of wealth, and he never thinks for a moment that he too might be subjected to such a state. So this is the commentary of this story, and the fact of the fact of this story, the reason of liking this story is, even though people or monks or laymen or monks, doesn't matter, like whoever had agitated mind, whoever have like disturbed mind, they are subject to feel misery, they are subject to feel suffering and pain in this very life. So that's why Buddha said that we have to always be mindful and reflect on impermanence. And also we have to reflect that we are not going to live in this world forever. One day we have to leave this world. We have to die. We have to face the reality. We have to face the nature. And we have to leave everyone behind. So thinking of those things, thinking of this reality, the nature of this life, eventually we should live and use this life, or use every day meaningfully and beautifully, without hating any other person, or without being angry, and without doing something not meaningful, or doing something harmful for myself and also for others. The moral of the story is we have to think of the death, and then also by thinking like that, thinking of the death, we would not make any conflict, any quarrels or argument with someone else, because we know everyone has to die, and then therefore it is useless to waste this life. It is useless to waste this even a single minute or a single second meaninglessly with arguing, quarreling, or making troubles with other people, other community, or even oneself. So we have to keep our mind peaceful with practicing the doctrine or the truth, or all those virtues, moralities, so then we can keep our mind more peaceful. And whoever has a peaceful mind, they experience like happiness, they experience peace and serenity and tranquility in this life. So they spend their life meaningfully, happily, and peacefully.